And we're live, the Born Free Podcast, episode 3. I am your host, Juan Shaman. I'm trying to keep these intros short and straight to the point so this becomes something that's a very easy listen. The conversations are long, but dopeness can't be contained, right? First episode, we had Admiral Njasi. Second episode, Ntiki Mazwai. Third episode was supposed to be Sammy Sosa, but a scheduling miscommunication happened there. But episode 3, I have a very, very, very interesting person, a very lovely person. I have Boitumelo Boikhutso, a registered trauma counselor. We spoke about everything from depression, anxiety, just mental health as a whole, right? And it was a very detailed and a very interesting dialogue, right? Very honest and open, but much more serious than the previous material, but it was a dope conversation to have. And remember, obviously, the Born Free Podcast, rate, subscribe, and review on iTunes. Please check us out on SoundCloud. We are up on YouTube as well. Subscribe on there. Please, let's get to 200, the top 200 list on iTunes, top 200 podcasts in the country, rather. But as soon as we get there, I'm trying to do a live podcast with an audience. So help me get there. Please rate, subscribe, and review on SoundCloud. Follow us on SoundCloud. You can also obviously rate and leave a comment there as well. On YouTube, just subscribe to the channel, man. But yeah, like I said, I just want to keep this short with no further ado, I'm losing my words now. But yeah, without further ado, I give you Boitumelo Boikhutso, registered trauma counselor. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Born Free Podcast, episode 3. Finally, after all deliberation. I'm even still checking if we're getting level properly, but I'm assuming we are. Special guest in the studio today, we have Boitumelo Boikhutso.
Yes.
Hashtag Boitoko, the company.
Hashtag.
But I haven't introduced you yet, so chill out. What's going on? No, relax. Registered trauma counselor.
Yeah.
Business owner.
Yes.
And business lady.
Yeah.
And lecturer.
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's to some extent.
Did I miss anything else? What do I need to add?
Training consultant.
And what else? But I spoke about these ands.
I know.
How many of the ands are actually operating?
All of them.
Okay.
Everything that I'm listing to you. Oh, radio.
Okay, yes.
Radio
host.
Well. Yes.
I'm not going to shout out the radio
health.
station.
No. Yeah, mental health and wellness. We have a radio slot.
Awesome stuff.
Every
all of that. What else?
A bit of TV appearances as well.
TV?
Yes.
As
so
what now?
As like a guest as well, like under my profession, obviously. So if they're talking, like, I don't know if I can name drop.
No, you butchered my intro.
So
this is still the intro. So, boys, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now you can name drop. What did you do on TV?
I did a few shows. So for Motswako, I came on.
Motswako's a music show, right?
No, Motswako is a talking, like a proper, talking kind of show. It's not a music
Motswako,
show.
the SABC 2.
Yeah, it's not about music.
Isn't Motswako the one with Boston?
No.
King Ew, what's that?
I want to King, but I see something cafe, Afro cafe nyana.
Oh, Afro Cafe, sorry. Okay, Motswako is...
In Angli, I forgot that lady's name, but she's yellow bow.
T's,
wife.
His name? T's wife.
Yes.
What's his name? What's T? Oh, I'm butchering radio legend. Yes, Mapaseko Mukwele.
That one.
Yes. Oh, okay, yeah. I've heard the show in passing.
That one, and then Khonaleng Vusaseki. That's also an SABC 2.
And what did you appear as there?
Registered trauma counselor. So we're talking
so these
about...
are not creative appearances. These are guest appearances as like speaking on particular topics.
Yes. So then they'd call me in, like, boy, let's talk to the masses, our black
So
people.
what did they have you speaking as?
Or on or as?
Or on.
So we're
as a
talking,
registered trauma counselor,
Yes,
obviously,
yes,
but
yes.
on
So I remember Kavusa Seki, we spoke about Jojo, so
Oh.
bribery, yeah, in South Africa. Like,
the psychological effects
just be-
and reasons for bribery. I thought these were
like-
social, but okay.
Yeah, psychosocial though. Well, bribery not only just in paying cops or whatever the case may be, but people having to either sleep their way up
Ooh,
of the
okay.
ladder, being discriminated upon within a certain, corporate environment or whatever the case
Okay.
may be, the impacts of that, obviously.
On the individuals.
On the individuals, their self-esteem moving on forward and things like that, So that was one of them. And then for Athinele Motsoako, where we did gender, I don't want to say gender identity, but yeah, so one of the ladies came on as a guest and she was previously a guy, and she changed.
Okay. Transsexual.
Transgender, actually. There we go.
What's the difference?
I'd say, transsexual, transgender. It's the same.
Okay.
Sexuality.
So I'm not
blood-
offending
no,
anyone
no,
who's transsexual.
No, we're not. No,
Slippery
we're not.
slope these days.
It is, bruh. Since I should be disclaiming, and no,
Okay.
it
So
is. It is.
Transgender, transsexual.
Transsexual,
Okay.
transgendered. Yeah. So had her on the show, and I was just bringing in that psychological kind of perspective, especially given context of black communities. It's very frowned upon, unheard of. But I mean, this is someone that was well in her late 30s and came from a family that was like, okay, we'll fund this. If it's how you feel and what it is that you want, we'll do it. So you don't often find black families that support that.
Sticking with that, okay, the whole shift, right, to transgender or transsexual, pardon my ignorance, how does that work from your perspective, from the psychological perspective? Is it genetic? Is it what is it? Can we is it, it's a choice, obviously, but what motivates it?
Actually, it's not a choice.
It's not a choice.
So
But
someone-
I'm saying choosing to
change.
yes, I'm saying
to go
that's
through that process. Yeah,
primarily a
choice
and a
Yes.
decision you have to make.
Yes.
So what motivates that change?
That change. So with a lot of people that I've sat with, or the handful of people that I've sat with that are transgendered, they'll normally tell you that they grew up feeling foreign in their own bodies. So you grew up
I've heard
as
that as well, yeah.
you grew up as a little girl or as a little boy, but you never felt like you were a little girl or a little boy. So like with this lady in particular, she grew up around a lot of her like female cousins and stuff. She'd still go play ball with the boys and
Yeah.
things like that, but she just never felt that she fitted in. And like as time went on, there was just a lot of things that were going through or going on with her body, and she was like, just something just doesn't feel right.
And just to stick with the, so we actually go with the flow of the conversation. You keep saying she because she's
she's a
transition.
female.
This is at this particular stage that we're talking about. She
was a boy.
She was the boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was
Cool.
she was the boy.
Just want to keep the guys and the listeners on track.
On track. Nice
Yeah.
one. Nice one.
Cool. So at this point, this is how old?
So she was pre-teens at that point. So between 10 and 12.
Oh wow, that's very early.
Yeah.
That's
But
very
she
early.
says from an even younger, like she just knew, she could feel it, So going through her teenage years, so obviously from dress code to certain things, like she just liked chilling with her female cousins.
Yeah.
She'd take interest in
She
a
was
lot of
feminine.
She was very much feminine, She'd take part in all those kind of feminine attributes. It's just that physically she was
She was
quite.
He was a dude.
No, she was a proper dude, and I mean, obviously she was quite athletic, so the shoulders,
Yeah.
and she was quite nicely built.
So this is not the case of someone who's genetically ambiguous, right?
Yes,
This
no.
is the case of this is a guy born
Born
100%,
100%.
but 100% boy, male, and then wanting to or feeling or having certain, I don't know, changes or psychological, biological,
Yeah,
I don't know the
psychological,
actual-
emotional.
and making the transition to become a woman,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when it's quite interesting. I know this was supposed to be in passing, but when did she make this
Change.
change?
If I'm not mistaken, medically, yes. And that's a process in itself. So don't forget that you just don't wake up one day and say, let's do the change. Let me go under a knife and let's do it.
Yeah.
She first has to go for hormone treatments, or he at that point has to go for hormone treatments. And then again, therapy, intense therapy, because now you're preparing this person.
Okay.
You know,
this is psychotherapy.
This is psychotherapy.
Yeah.
This is long term now. You know, we're talking more than a year going to therapy while you're going for your hormone treatments. And then they slowly then start surgery in terms of...
obviously, this costs a lot.
Yeah. I think she even went to Thailand to have her whole procedure done. And again, her family funded it. You know, but again, I think she came from quite an insightful family. So
wealthy too?
Yeah, I think they were quite comfortable, and I think, you know, involved way back when, and, you know, I don't want to say the struggle or anything like that, but it seemed like, you know,
their
family
position
members, yeah, and nice, you know.
Yeah. So, but like, what's the alternative now for someone or an individual that doesn't have that social placement and that financial backing from a family? Because I mean, I'm assuming this is not rare, right?
It's actually not rare.
Yeah, it's a common thing.
It is a common thing, and I was very surprised to know when I was actually sitting doing the interview and everything that she was like, there's a huge waiting list, Kopara, where they actually do these surgical procedures. I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. So yeah, there's a lot of people that have kind of applied to go through for the surgeries and stuff.
At what point does socializing and social engineering come into play with something like that? For example, when do we draw the line in terms of, do we say, because like you're coming from a psychological standpoint, and obviously there are medical reasons why someone can transition. Like I said, going back up, you're genetically ambiguous. Like there's people that are
born with both sex organs.
So right. So at what point do we say, okay, now this is something this is a social decision and someone being socialized, both obviously still up to a person and still their decision to make, but is it always a matter of someone 100% knowing that they are not male or they are not female, therefore we want to make the transition to...
I don't even think we can comfortably say 100%.
Yeah.
There might be some cases
where...
Well,
they know inherently that they're
not
supposed to be a female.
Yeah.
Or they know inherently that they're supposed to be a male, right? So there's a certain knowledge you have, right?
Yeah.
That this is not what I want to be,
not
what I was... You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So at what point do we say, okay, that's definitely that? Is there a certain threshold, and are there certain parameters and procedures that we can take psychologically and medically to say, okay, you're actually just going through a phase of being socialized, and perhaps this is not the best decision. Yeah, the best decision. Because I mean, you have to, at some point, you deter certain people from. Not everyone gets you definitely need to be doing this, right?
But I think that's why you have to go for quite intense psychotherapy for quite a while before you start the procedure, so that, you know, we kind of tap into it and you gain insight and awareness. And for you, at the end of the day, it's not even for me as a therapist to try and change your mind. It's to get to a point where you're that mentally prepared and emotionally prepared of the transition that's going to happen. You know, so it's not even trying to say, no, maybe this is not the best decision. Even if the person is fueled by any other reason that they want to change their gender, there's no right or wrong answer. It's what works best for that person. Yeah. So if they made sense that maybe when they were younger, they were, maybe abused in some manner, and they want to just change their sexual orientation because of that, that's fine. You take it to therapy, we unpack. And if that person still, after a year and a half of going for therapy, says, listen, actually I still want to do this, then that's what they need to do then.
Definitely.
Yeah.
As a registered, firstly, how do you get to a point where you are registered trauma counselor?
So my specialization is trauma.
Okay.
I've got my honors in psychology.
Okay.
So I went and studied psychology. Got my honors.
Okay.
And then after
well
that,
done.
yeah. Thank you. And then after that, you do a year's worth of internship while you're in your honors. So we had to do 72 hours worth of internship. So that's at Vescorpies, that's at Leeucorp Prison, that's at ALA.
72 hours, that's 3 days. Right?
No, 72?
24,
72?
48. My maths is so terrible.
72
How many
hours.
hours is it? That's a few days, though.
That is a few days, but
Okay.
now like spread it out. Was it 72? Now you've got me thinking.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, because now you're
My
full-time
dumb little
student.
self assumes that everybody works for 24 hours. Sorry.
Yes.
So yes, it's spread
No,
out.
never mind that. It's spread out
Yeah.
through a year. Because again, you must remember we're full-time students,
Yeah,
honest
yeah.
students. So we have to do 1 or 2 hours of prison
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that
every
makes definitely
week.
sense.
So after all those weeks,
How's
it
that like
accumulates.
though? I mean,
Sway.
this is the first time you're meeting people and practicing, right?
So in your honors, we were running groups now in prisons.
Okay.
Yo, my guy. Like I'm even getting flashbacks.
What's some of those like the worst? Okay, not worst, but the detailed memory you have of one of those
of prison.
sessions. Yeah.
So, juvenile. The first thing I remember was the shiny floors and that smell of the soap that they use to clean the floor. So it's spotless.
Yeah.
All right. I remember us walking out and they were showing us around now. They were showing us the kitchen. As we got out to like the soccer field, there's no trees, mind you. So the sun is like blaring hot. And you've got two choices. It's either you're outside in the sun or you're in the cells. Okay.
Whoa.
So as we step out now, it's just girls. Like homies went ballistic. You know when you like the juvies now that are like all of them are all out there. The people, the guys that were playing soccer were just like, nah, let's just wait. Hang on, are those females? What's going on? When you literally feel like you're a piece of meat, literally, and you're walking, then you're going, listen, yeah, warden, please do not walk too fast, too far.
That's
and they show you
crazy.
around. That was really.
And these are what
up
to 18?
No, up to about 22.
22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up to about 22. Some of them have been there since they were like 16, 17.
And what are the stories? Why are most of them there?
It's different reasons. I mean, there's a lot of guys where it was quite drug related.
Okay.
So they were on particular drugs like heroin. And now for those that know or don't know, when you're on heroin, it's very difficult to get off heroin because the withdrawal symptoms are excruciating. So you go through a lot of pain when the drug is leaving your system, hence why they need to get a fix all the time. So those people would obviously break into homes or into shops and things like that. Quite a lot of rape cases, or rather where a lot of them say the girl cried rape at that point in time.
So this is also males, so that you're in
a male prison.
Okay,
That's
I'm
where we were
assuming
at. It was a female, no?
Okay, so when
Which
you said
apparently
juvenile, I'm
worse.
assuming you're saying juvenile. You went to specifically juvenile center for female.
No, this was like Leeucorp
delinquents.
prison.
No, this is
Like this is male prison. There's
and you're in there.
in there with now the instructions were when we left campus was
I don't know.
no
I don't know how I feel
perfume,
about that.
no makeup. You don't look anything close to being attractive. So you're in your
Yeah.
slacks, you're in your sneakers, which worked perfectly
Yeah.
for me back in varsity. And I promise you that roll-on smile, they could smell it from a mile. So that was juvie. Little did I know that when we go to medium C and maximum, it gets even more intense. I think medium C, where it's almost like the in-betweener. So once your juvies are too old now to stay in juvenile section, they'll be taken into medium C. Maximum, obviously, we're looking at your serial
So these
killers and your rapists and stuff. And sitting with a lot of those people that were, imprisoned like before, we were kind of a democratic country.
Yeah.
So, post 94, or rather pre 94. So some of them have never seen groups coming in where it's like two white ladies and two black girls and we're all friends.
They're
and
not used to
we're doing this therapy
Yeah.
thing. They're going, what's going on in this country? So Maximum was quite humbling because there's a lot of old people, but also quite a few young people within our group, but we drew quite close to them, but also keeping in mind that you're dealing with people that also might have a lot of pathology, so you get a bit of like your psychopaths and all sorts of things that are very manipulative and very charming to just kind of lure you in. So we always had to kind of, be quite alert.
So what was the purpose of you going there? were you supposed to
Perform groups.
treat? Is this not a treatment thing? This is
No.
psychoanalyze.
Yeah,
Right?
not even psychoanalyze. I mean, we would do that when we got back to class and said to our lecturer, so we saw this prisoner that showed these and these signs, and then we do that on
Yeah.
the side. But what we were meant to do there is run groups for them. So around substance abuse,
Oh, okay.
things like that.
So basically, they're sharing experiences, and then you're kind of.
We're giving them psychoeducation in
Okay.
terms of coping skills, coping strategies.
And does that help? Did that help?
It seemed like it. I mean, we made it quite interactive. So they'd make posters, or we'd make them put on a play, role play or whatever the case may be, just to see if, the information is really sticking with them. And obviously, it's not everyone that's going to take something back home,
Yeah.
but there's one or two or a handful where you'd be like, nah, actually, you know what? This person's leaving in the next year or two. And hopefully they'll take a bit of this education or training or whatever it is, with them when they go out. Because now you must keep in mind that a lot of prisoners become reoffenders ever so often. Because it's rather now the world that you're used to than the world out there. Because you don't fit in anymore, the world out there.
Do you think mental health is something that is popular in terms of corrective measures, right? And so we send people to jail, right? In a way, well, we punish them, basically. It's that how we view it. Different societies view it differently, but I think ours predominantly views it as a punishment, right? So you did something wrong, and we're punishing you and we hope, right, that once you're done serving your time, you come back a better citizen, right? And your behavior changes. And I think any person would realize that that's not going to work.
No.
Right?
No.
It's not good.
It's
You don't
not
have to
gonna
be a
work.
psychologist, therapist to know that's not going to work. So why do you think mental health, and I'm assuming here, but it doesn't look like it's something that's focused on within our correctional facilities?
Okay. Well, within our correctional facilities, no, because at the end of the day, you must remember that we're also dealing with an environment that's less empathetic in terms of the offenders. If the court found you guilty, then there's a reason why you're here. Keeping in mind that you might have the odd case where actually someone is innocent.
Yeah.
They get in there, they get traumatized from that experience,
And then that's
come out
done.
much more bitter and angry at the end of the day. So, I mean, I think now they really are slowly trying to. I think my varsity is still pretty much running that program. I'm not too sure if there's any other universities where they send psychology students into prisons and so forth. But I know that there's social workers in prisons as well, so they do have that platform where they can sit with someone and have a bit of counseling with them, and they can assist them in that regard. But I mean, if we're talking pathology and quite intense like bipolar depression and all that, I don't think much time or effort is really put into that, because it's a matter of, well, you are in prison at the end of the day. We can't be making things super comfortable for you. So I don't think much time or energy or effort has been put in that regard. But I think in our country as a whole, mental health and wellness is not a priority. We're literally bottom of the food chain, and I'm going, every second person is going through something, or do they have the ability to, or the funds to go and see someone who can, help them out, whether it be a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever the case may be. There's no resources for that.
So what then can we? What is the description of someone who's at peak mental health? Right, we're all not perfect,
No,
right?
None of us
But a model citizen or a model individual of peak mental health. What's that? Is there a description of an individual like that?
I don't think it would only be mental health. I think it'd be a holistic. They'd be at a peak holistically. So that would be mentally, emotionally, and physically. Okay,
so is there a description of that?
Definitely. I would say that it's someone that really goes out their way to create a balance within their life. So it's a matter of whether it be your role as a CEO, as a dad, and then you have to come back and be a brother and a father and a husband or whatever the case may be. It's creating the balance in all those worlds that exist, but also making sure that you never forget that you are your own tool. So I need to look after myself.
Okay.
So what are the things that I put in place in my life to make sure that I'm okay? Do I eat properly? Do I get enough rest? What kind of lifestyle am I leading? So I think that would be the key word there would be what kind of lifestyle a person is leading at the end of the day. Are they creating a balance given that lifestyle at the end of the day? So I think, that would really be the closest that I'd get to that.
So do you think that is there a certain lifestyle that we promote that hinders that peak holistic individual, right? Is that something that we talk about a lot, often? Like we talk about health, right? Physical health. It becomes like a fad, and there's a phase where everything is about, physical health, eat healthy, exercise, etc. But that's, that I don't think that's not as, I don't know, it's not as detailed, right? It's more of a pop culture most of the time, more of an economic thing, right?
Yes.
Like get people into gyms, get people eating healthy. I think there's nuance to that. I think it's good and bad. But do we ever talk about spiritual health, mental health? How you become a model individual for yourself and for the people around you, outside of obviously just consuming, right?
No, we don't. And I think that's my main problem, is that those conversations, if they are happening, it's in small pockets, and I don't want to say it's the elite few that are having those conversations or privy to having someone engage them on that level, because we all have the capability of having these conversations. And I guess it's part and parcel of why I'm out and about and doing what I do in different social platforms or different platforms. It's because we need to start having those conversations where it's not a matter of luxury or having certain information that, you're leading or living a particular lifestyle, but it's a matter of, there's that sense of insight and awareness to yourself as an individual. We all have the capacity of doing that or applying ourselves in that manner.
So access to information is a huge thing, especially in the country. Is that also a fault? Like the fact that people don't have certain information about mental health, right? Because I think identifying a problem or an issue with yourself is key, right? If you don't know that anything is wrong,
then
there's no need to fix it. So do you think information is at the forefront of why people aren't taking mental health seriously and aren't prioritizing their state of being?
I think not only information, like I said, we are our own tools. I think people lack that, I don't want to say ability, but making or creating time to actually get to know themselves. Want to be very honest. I mean, I think 90% of the people that sit in my therapy rooms, it all boils down to you've never taken time to have a relationship with yourself. So if I had to sit here and ask you, how do you know you're stressed, Wandile? Where people will sit and be like, I can tell you what stress symptoms are. Like,
I can define it.
But actually, I don't know when it comes to me, how do I handle stress? And, you'll really find people sitting there for a good 5 minutes going, snap, actually, I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm going, that doesn't boil down to necessarily getting any particular information, but it's really a journey of getting to know yourself. If you're fatigued, if you're not feeling great, emotionally, or spiritually, on those different realms, how does that manifest within me? That's a relationship that you build with yourself. And also, definitely, I think your support structure, your family, your background would, play a role in terms of if you come from a family where they were quite insightful or quite aware of themselves and, your emotions were always acknowledged and all those type of things, then it becomes a bit easier. Some people, it's just a matter of, well, I just make sure that I eat okay, or I just get 3 meals in my system or 1 big meal. I get enough rest. I need to go to work so I can make money so I can pay my bills. That's it. And not really remembering that at the end of the day, you need to function on all different levels, not just on a physical level at the end of the day.
So how does the regular individual, right, with who does not have access to a therapist or a trauma counselor or all these resources that help, right? How does one maintain their sanity, quote unquote? Like how does one maintain and take care of their state of mind or their state of being psychologically, spiritually? What are some of the things or practices or habits that one needs to get into, right?
I would literally say that reading would be one of them, journaling. Again, I think that just stimulates one, mentally as well.
Yeah.
For some people, it's music, whether it be writing poetry or whatever the case may be. Physically as well, obviously eating right, making sure that you stay hydrated. And really like tapping into those things, And I know people like Islaleni or back out there in your homelands or whatever the case may be might say, well, they don't have access to particular things, And I'm going, no, we've had our grandmothers and so forth that have grown up beautifully so and quite strong, due to the natural resources that they may have, taking walks, actually taking time for yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you're actually sitting and we don't have to go fancy and say, okay, let's do a bit of yoga or whatever, but taking a walk, soaking in your environment, things like that, things that really don't cost a thing that any individual can really do.
But don't you also think environment, the environment that people are placed in, right, socially, economically, also contributes to their psyche? Right? I mean, I was having this conversation with a friend. Being in Johannesburg, right, as let's say a young working class citizen, right, surely has to be, you have different psychological challenges than someone who lives in Mpumalanga, who doesn't have that fast pace, hustle and bustle, that constant, you need to be doing something and you need to be making something of yourself, right? That always be busy state of mind, right? That Johannesburg as an environment comes with, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think that also plays a major role with where people are mentally?
Nail on the head. Very, very true. Obviously, I think the concerns or the frustrations would be very different.
Yeah.
Someone that's way back home is praying every day that they can come to Joburg and, find something and be part of the hustle and bustle.
Be careful what you wish for.
It is, literally, So they're frustrated going, is this going to be my life? Herding cows, fetching, wood for the fire or whatever the case may be. Some are quite content at that. So I guess it's also what they've been exposed to. So once you know better, and I put that in inverted commas, then you almost kind of want to aspire for that or to that. So if they're exposed to maybe television and they're seeing all sorts of things, they're going, that's what I want.
Yeah.
But take that out of the equation, they wouldn't know any different. I won't even say any better, any different.
It's perception.
It is perception, So, I mean, if I had to sit maybe with a bunch of teenagers, maybe it would be maybe stress over what can I say, safe sex, things around that, dating, relationships, financial planning. So they would have definitely different dynamics in that regard, as opposed to someone that's out here in Joburg, who's probably the same age. There might be some similarities here and there because, you go through that developmental kind of stages. But this side, it might be a bit heightened because there's the pressure and there's the keeping up with the Joneses and, all sorts of things. Yeah. So, I mean, it would differ, but I also don't think vastly. So it depends what each person's been exposed to as well. Yeah.
So as a registered trauma counselor, do you have the power to give or write a script for someone for particular medication? Do you?
No.
There's no, your work has no, you don't prescribe anything to anyone.
So myself, psychologists, social workers, even if you've got your doctorate in social work or anything like
Okay.
that. You can't prescribe. So the only people that can prescribe medication are your psychiatrists.
Okay.
So psychiatrists are fundamentally doctors
Okay.
that also have a psychology degree.
Yeah.
So it would be a master's in well, I would say it would be equivalent to a master's degree in psychology. And then there's 7 years of medicine as well. So they're able to say, okay, well, you were referred to me for depression or bipolar. Let me just, do a bit of a background check or do a bit of a clinical interview, find out what your symptoms are. Let me give you a medication that will best assist you in that regard. However, then they will refer the client or the patient back to one of us, psychologist, a counselor, depending,
Okay.
to then have ongoing therapy. So with myself, it would be very much between 6 to 8 sessions that I can then see a client or a patient. And then with a psychologist, they can go for long term. So it could be the next 3 years, 4 years. So one is short term, the other one is quite long term as well.
And does medication help? What's your take on prescribing something to someone?
To someone. Mine personally, I'm really not big on medication. I'm not saying that there's no place for it. But I feel like sometimes we're very willy-nilly in terms of just dishing out medication. Sometimes someone just needs to sit down and unpack what is really bothering them.
But that takes time, though.
It absolutely
Nobody wants to
does.
sit
So
down
people want quick fixes, but then they wonder why there's never really any
Solutions to it, yeah.
solution or progress. They're going, I've been feeling stagnant for the past 2 years. I've
take
been
a pill.
drinking these pills, but nothing is changing. And I'm going, yeah, because you haven't really solved anything. That's why they have to kind of go together in terms of if you're on medication, not a problem. Go to therapy and unpack. A lot of, especially when it comes to pathology, there's normally triggers. You'll go through a traumatic event in your life and that triggers schizophrenia if you're predisposed to schizophrenia in your family, or bipolar or depression. But a lot of it is also hormonal imbalance in the body. That's why I'm saying that you have to be so kind of careful and quite critical.
Yeah.
Because for some people, it's just they're going through a dip in their life. They've just lost their job. Everything just seems to be going like south.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would not be in a good space. Go to therapy, unpack it, talk it out, get to a point where you feel like you've got clear perspective. And that's how you empower a person. But I could have easily said, go to a psychiatrist, pop pills.
Yeah.
And then what do they get from that? Because psychiatrists don't go through therapy with them. Per se, it's just literally they prescribe, make sure that your doses are fine, you're keeping at your taking your medication and so forth.
And do you think like we're empathetic enough as a country? Let's just talk about us. Like, do we? Because people will say like, okay, depression, and be like, what's that? Like, like there's an ignorance towards mental health. Everybody wants to, just dismiss it and say, okay, you just need to do that. Like you said, sometimes you do need to sit down. I'm not saying everybody that dismisses certain psycho or psychological issues are wrong, right? Because like sometimes you do need to take a seat
and just pull yourself towards
yourself.
yourself,
Exactly. Not
introspect.
everything is a psychosis of some sort.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But also, do you think we take it lightly too often?
Ever so often. I mean, look at our, whether it be kids, not even just kids, South Africans taking their own lives.
Yeah.
South Africans that end up being institutionalized, where you're going, this person was someone that was perfectly fine, and now they're this, person that's roaming around on the streets, and it seems like they're just not well, mentally. And I to be very honest, I don't know what it's going to take our country to really realize how important our mental health and wellness is as a nation, because it's a huge part of who we are. We can't just one day wake up and say, okay, let's scratch out our emotions and let's just function on physical and mental and just hope for the best. Everyone is an emotional being. Everyone is a mental being, and we have to function at a certain level at the end of the day. But if we're not putting in those resources as a priority, then how are we expecting, our people or us as a nation to function then at the end of the day? Number one, trauma being one of them. I mean, we're a country that comes from trauma. Have we dealt with that trauma?
Yeah.
That's another question, you know, and how much of that is being now passed on generation to generation. So I really feel like a lot of that stuff has not been made a priority. I mean, at some point we had our own president saying that, you know, depression is a white man's sickness or illness. You know, where I'm going, do you know how prevalent depression is in males? And this is across all races, males in South Africa. It's really growing, you know, it's really, really growing at the end of the day. So yeah.
I mean, what are some of the so we're talking about mental health in a broad term, right? So we have depression, anxiety. What are some of the most prevalent that you've had to deal with as a registered trauma counselor? Like what is the biggest issue that most of the people that come see you have?
Sure. I think in terms of pathology, obviously my scope of practice, the minute I encounter pathology, I'd have to refer. You know, so I can always kind of refer in saying, I'm seeing signs of depression or bipolar or schizophrenia. Please just further explore and then refer to a psychiatrist. You know, but what's come into my office, I mean, depression being definitely depression and anxiety, but also people just a lot of things around lack of, again, emotional acknowledgement or stimulation and mental.
Okay.
You know, so I'm talking about literally your normal folk. You know, you step out here, anyone that you might bump into in the corridors, you know, a lot of, and I say normal again in inverted commas because normal is also relative. But we're talking about everyday people, you know, that are fully functioning, but again, it's heavy for them, you know. So there's a lot of people that come into my rooms. Yes, at some point, people get to rooms where they have really reached that threshold and they're going, I can't anymore. I'm feeling suicidal. There is intention, and you know, we explore all of that. Immediately, you'll have that person booked in at a particular clinic. Okay, not a Vescorpies because we're not dealing with psychosis per se, but someone that's just going, I can't right now.
Yeah.
You know, you go for your 21 days or your 26 days into an institution where you get a holistic intervention. Psychiatrist, therapist, dietitian, everyone looking at every element and aspect of you. So a lot that comes into my rooms, I would say, links deeply into depression, which is a lot of dissatisfaction around the life that they're living, relationships, work. You know, they've been doing this for the past 10 years and they're going, again, I feel like this can't be life. It feels like something is wrong.
How much of that, just sticking with that point, because I don't want to miss this, but how much of that is due to, like we said, like just perception management, like where you view so much socially of how things should be, right? And most of the time, that's not 100% real or authentic, right? So we view television, we're consuming so much media, social media, etc., on how our life should be, or at least how other people's lives are and how your life comes short, right? How much of that leads to, you know,
perception?
Yeah, like just depression, because that you can be. Okay, let me not say depressed because I'm not skilled enough or don't have that vast knowledge of saying that's depression, but you can, it's easy for someone to look at someone else's life or look at the digital self-image or perception of someone else's life and look at theirs and be quite upset, right? Because there's a certain, that you falling short, right? You don't have this, they have this, and therefore this is the quintessential female or this is the quintessential male, right? How much of that really ties into a culture of depression, if I can say that?
You know what? A lot. And I think that's why, I mean, we were having this chat on Sunday at a gathering that I was at in terms of now anxiety, depression and all that. And I was like, you know what? I was telling everyone that I remember writing an article for Sunday Times where Dumi and I were defining the difference between sadness and depression. Where the term depression is so loosely thrown out there. I'm not saying that it hasn't become much more prevalent as the years have gone by, but again, we loosely throw that, you know, out there because sometimes I am just sad that my neighbor is just
and that's a
doing
clinical term, right? Depression is a clinical term.
So you can't just
like
wake up and be like, I'm depressed. Someone really
Gotta
needs
have
to,
a degree or something. Like,
you
can't just...
you just
Okay.
throw it out there and like, yeah, you know what Dr. Google said to me, then I'm depressed.
Okay.
Nah. Because again, you can show so many. I mean, if I had to bring the DSM, which is almost like our psychological Bible,
Okay.
inverted commas, that has all the different, diagnoses and stuff.
yeah.
What falls under, what are the symptoms?
Okay.
You could almost identify yourself in every second thing that's in there. And that's why I'm saying, you know what, it has to be the degree that is experienced. And again, sometimes it is hereditary.
Yeah.
So your great-grandmother was, suffered from depression. So it's a hormonal imbalance. Same thing with bipolar and all sorts of things. So again, there are some things where you can take blood tests, you run tests and all that stuff, and you're going, yes, this person has this. Some of it is very much environmental as well. Where you're going, someone has been maybe in a toxic relationship for the past year or 2 years, and they're just going, I feel like death warmed up right now. I think I might be depressed.
But that doesn't need treatment per se.
No, that doesn't need medication per se.
Okay.
You go to therapy, we unpack and be like, okay, when did this all start?
Okay.
You go, actually, if I have to think about it, 2 years ago, everything was fine. A year and a half ago, that's when things kind of started changing. Okay, what happened a year and a half ago in your life where that transition started changing? Oh no, I got into the relationship with this lady or with this guy and everything was great. But then I just haven't been happy, actually. Then people get emotional because now it's the realization of something that you've always known, that you're not happy. But now you're speaking it out to someone and almost acknowledging that, you know what, my relationship, for instance, has been depressing me. It has been toxic for me. My self-esteem is depleted at this point because it's just been chopped down to size. So there's so many contributing factors that can leave a person feeling a particular way.
And that can't that be a lack of emotional intelligence of some sort?
Or the stimulation of that, because I really feel like a lot of us that are maybe not privy to be in the psychology field or whatever the case may be, don't have a lot of we all have emotional intelligence, but it's whether or not it's stimulated or not.
Okay, stimulated how?
So again, it starts from small. How are we socialized? It's okay for girls to cry. It's not okay for boys to cry. Why isn't it okay for boys to cry? That's why now we're sitting with a lot of males that struggle with their own emotions, so they suppress them. It's okay if it manifests through anger and rage because as a man, that's accepted. But sometimes I just need a good cry. I wake up in the morning and I'm going, jeepers, I'm exhausted. Sometimes I feel and ask myself if it's worth it. Sometimes I just need a good cry. And crying is a release. But again, you've been socialized in a particular way.
True.
Maybe you come from a family that's going, men need to do this or boys need to do this. Girls need to do this. It's very kind of boxed in and so forth. So again, there's only so much that you allow yourself to even explore, your emotional side of things. Yeah. And then one day it's almost like you wake up and you're going, oh, I'm 30.
Hit you at once.
I'm 30 and I'm like, oh, I've got all these emotions. I am a person that's quite sensitive. I wasn't given a chance to even explore my sensitivity when I was a teenager or going through stuff or going through the most when I was a teenager. There was no opportunity because everyone would be like, no, man up. Or no, listen, a woman has to be strong. One day you're going to be heading your own house. It's all these external ideals at the end of the day where I'm going, sure. When you speak of introspection, people look at you and like, what's that now? And I'm going, how's about going back home and thinking, sure, what a day. What happened today? How did I feel? At 3 o'clock, I was quite exhausted, but that's after I had a long meeting where we were debating about certain things that angered me at the end of the day. So it's almost like, making sense and being able to process a lot of things, which again impacts you mentally, emotionally, and physically. Yeah. Because if you don't deal with those things, some of it manifests physically. That's when you get psychosomatic disorders and so forth.
So how do we get people to, one, talk more, right? As a way of trying to identify their shortcomings psychologically. And also how do we, because everything needs to be packaged a certain way nowadays, right? It needs to be marketed. Right? In particular way. How do we market mental health to the regular young person, right? How do we market it in the sense of this really exists and this is
It's real.
how it affects you as an individual. And how do we get people to speak? Because I think speaking out is another, it's another deterrent, because we tell people to voice their opinions and voice what's going on with them, but at the same time everyone's busy, so no one's empathetic, right? So everybody's like, okay, park your depression and park your
Just chill a
anxiety
bit.
as we tackle A, B, and C. So how do we get people to just be able to freely express themselves and freely express what they're going through and how they feel, and this is both male and female, and how they can actually go about getting help and treatment
and all that stuff.
and all this.
I think number one for me, it's making it very much accessible, and that's why I'm saying it needs to almost become like a movement or a culture within our country at the end of the day. So we could try as this generation. I almost feel like that's what we're doing. We're having these chats, So I would definitely say making it much more accessible, making it okay for someone to chat about how they were deep in their feels, last week, and they don't know what was going on with them. So normalizing some of these things, because you must remember that a lot of some of these things that we go through mentally or emotionally or physically, they're normal. But who's going out there going, oh, by the way, those are normal.
I go through that too.
I go through it's normal.
You need that validation from
Yes.
people publicly to be like, okay,
Yes.
I should be going through this,
Yes.
and this is fine.
Yeah. That sense of acknowledgement, So we need to be having those platforms where we are having those chats, from schools, from primary school. To high school, varsity, where I'm not even sure why this is not even put into the curriculum somehow, where we know that everyone that attends a school, whether it's private, public, it doesn't matter, but you really have, it's supposed to be life orientation, but I feel like life LO, I don't know what they call it now, life skills, I think they call it now.
In LO.
Do you get what I'm saying? A lot of people was like, free period.
I think everybody thought LO was a free period. I can't actually reference any material.
If I have to think about the content, then I was like, okay, it was stuff around religion, the three main religions.
It was stuff around sex a lot.
And then it was sex,
And don't
reproduction, this and this.
STDs and
But even then,
use
they
a
don't go
condom.
into, the reality of how
Surface
things are
level.
going to be when you
Yeah.
find yourself in that situation. Because then when you find yourself in that situation, you're going, I have no memo for this. I don't know that this is how I was going to be feeling. And right now, I totally want to do this.
Yeah, I don't think they
but
prepared you for
No.
anything
No.
real.
Real,
Yeah, like
exactly.
it was
Exactly.
theoretically, the information was correct,
Yes,
right?
yes.
On paper, but
Yeah.
experiencing it is
Experiencing
a whole nother,
something else. So I really think a sense of real talk around these things, and it's small basic stuff, because if we did that, I promise you, not that there wouldn't be a need for therapists or anything like that, but that would be like very severe cases, or maybe you'd go to therapy going, I just want that space to be about me.
Yeah.
But if we all have that good sense of wellness holistically, then it's just, you know that it's easily accessible. I'm having certain chats with mom and dad. We're going to be hopefully that generation where when we have our kids, we are having those chats. Going, hey son, you're going to go through a bit of a stage, or hey my daughter, if there's anything that you go through, come chat to me about it, Not like, okay, let's go consult other friends that know nothing about it, or whoever's cool mom down the road who also has her own unresolved issues or whatever. Teach us all sorts of, things that are not, on point. So I really feel like the stigma and it being too taboo, we need to kind of, shy away from that, move away from that, and really just start having those conversations. And hopefully at some point within our country those resources will grow, because it's not even like saying that it's only the elite few that have privy to some of these services. I'm going,
It should be for everyone.
It should be for everyone, and it's expensive. Even for someone that's got medical aid, they'll tell you, oh, you only have 10 sessions. Kind of go, you need a year's worth of therapy.
Wasn't there a whole it was, I don't know if it was particularly there was a debacle around whether or not psycho sessions or therapy sessions could be added under medical medical aid schemes, right? Do you remember something like that?
Yeah, we are. So I can, if I see a patient, a client that has medical aid and they're under cover, that covers for that.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
so
I think that was the issue.
yeah, that was the
Whether
issue
or
where they're
not
going,
you can just have it like so a regular medical aid member
Yeah.
with just a regular medical
Medical
aid
aid, yeah.
entry level can
yes,
come see
can
a
have that.
therapist and-
Normally, entry level, they won't. You know, it's quite a comprehensive cover where then you'll be given
going
10.
back to the fact that it has to be
Again.
someone who
Yeah.
got the paper.
Yes. So it's not easily accessible. And that's why I think that's why there's this whole stigma around, you know, it's only for people that have money or for.
Which is true. I mean, looking at it.
And it
who
shouldn't
can
be
get
that
it?
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's why I'm going,
like-
it shouldn't be that way, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, even for us to kind of grow within that space and try and infiltrate some of these markets or environments, I'm going, wherever there's a human being, we really should be there going, hold up,
Yeah.
the basics. How are you doing
Yeah.
this in your
Yeah.
life? So you might be getting, a good 100,000 K a month as your salary, but are you a happy person? Do you even know what that is? You know, what kind of life are you living? Those are questions that you and a friend could easily have, you know, or ask each other and conversations that you could easily have.
All right. Well, we're coming up on about an hour. But just to wrap it up, what would be the ideal environment that would allow an individual just to flourish, you know, psychologically? Like, so what are some of the infrastructures that we need to have as a country, but also socially, that will allow us to not deter us mentally, right? Everyone is gonna. There is, like we said, there's psychosis, and there's just those people who have to deal with genetic, shortcomings. But for the regular human being, right? What would be some of those environments that allow us to flourish psychologically?
Environments like that, and I don't even know if we have any within our country. I can think of the world where there's about 2-3 companies where I'm going, at the end of the day, they value the employees to that point where they're going, I'm not dealing with a robot, I'm dealing with a human being. Okay. So these are environments that accommodate if one delay is a father of 2 toddlers and is working crazy hours, that we make sure that we've got, for instance, a daycare facility, or
So basically empathy, right?
acknowledgement. And again, I think people need to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy, you know. So empathy is literally
You're
lending
putting it-
yourself to understand the next person. So it's putting yourself in someone else's shoes but keeping your own shoes on. Where sympathy is taking off your shoes, hopping into someone else's, and you take that on, you know. So empathy, acknowledgement, and I think an empowering type of environment, because I really feel like people just clock in and clock out.
Yep.
Clock in and clock out. You wake up, it's 30 years later. Oh, am I not retiring yet?
Yeah.
You know, but you want those environments where, you know, you almost build a bit of a family type of knit, or a cultural. We don't all have to like each other or be friends, you know, but definitely, yes, that understanding, lending yourself to understanding and empathizing with each other as human beings.
Cool. So where can you have your own practice, right?
Yes, I do.
Can you give that information out?
Yeah, I can.
So where can people, if the people want to speak to just Boits, particularly, how many wait, another question I actually wanted to ask before we wrap this up. Is there a lot of black people, particularly young black people, in this field?
I know about 5, which I closely work with.
Okay.
There are. I think my only issue and concern there is that some people get their honors, they get their masters, and then they go into something completely different. It's just a matter of like, I've got psychology background.
Yeah.
So when you say in this, and I'm going proactively, actually working
I'm saying
out
people
there,
that actually sit with individuals and, like we said, unpack their issues.
It depends. I think geographically, for instance, like in Randburg, well, with the companies that I'm affiliated to, I know that I'm probably the only black female therapist in my area. Yeah.
Because I might be wrong, but can, let's say, a white male understand what a young black female who's going through depression, can they unpack those issues? I might be wrong, but Wouldn't we want more to
kind of like match it up?
To match it in a way, like,
So you always have that option. So I know like some of the referrals that I get, some people are particular in saying, I want to see someone
I think I
African.
would be as well.
Some people are going, listen, if this person has got the psychological knowledge and is a therapist by profession, it really doesn't matter what race, color, creed they are, because psychosocial issues are psychosocial issues.
True.
So they will probably tend to me pretty much the same way. So yeah, it's okay for people to have their preferences. I always stress that go to someone that makes you comfortable, because you're going to be vulnerable in that space.
At the end of the day, you're talking and you're saying and you're talking about things that you probably never talked to anyone else about. So you want to be particularly or particular, so because of the comfort level and all that,
However, having said that, that's also not going to discredit all
of
the
course
other
not.
races
Definitely,
I've sat with, where I'm going,
Definitely.
oh wow, I'm sitting here with an Afrikaans male who's in his mid-40s.
Of course
and
not.
I mean, if you had to put that out there as a profile, people would be like, how does that work? And I'm going, perfectly so. He comes through, we unpack, we do our thing, and they're perfectly fine. So it's each to their own there, but it's important, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a particular preference.
But I would say we do need more.
Yes, we do. No, definitely. There's a huge shortage.
Yeah.
Psychiatrists, psychologists,
school psychologists, or like therapists.
We need, like, there's a huge shortage, especially male therapists, Wandile.
Yeah.
Like, sure, there's like a huge gap there. The ones that exist and the ones that I work with that I know, there's only like a handful.
Yeah.
We really need the homies to also get out here and
homies, come on, bro.
Yeah, man.
Please.
Guys, psychology is
going on?
awesome, man.
Can't all be rappers.
Yeah, man.
Boys, where your practice is in Randburg, right?
In Blegauri, yeah.
Blegauri, Randburg. That's where I gym. I gym in Blegauri.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Maybe I've actually, where in particular in Blegauri?
121 Bromfisher Road.
Okay, I've never passed that place.
Okay.
Cool. But yeah, boys, it's been great. I think we've got through so much. That's you can never,
can never be enough.
You can never be enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've got things to do. But what you've also got a show. Look, let's plug the show. You also have a show on Mix FM.
Yes, Mix FM 93.8. Every second Monday of each month.
Every second Monday of
each month.
Okay.
That's our mental health and wellness kind of slot.
What's
and
the name of the show?
Well, we call it BBM.
Okay, why?
Because it's two Boitumelos. It's Boitumelo Boikhutso and Boitumelo Boikhutso. So I'm BB, she's BM.
Oh, okay.
So Al Kariaki, who's also one of our presenters, well, he pretty much mans the desks. He's just like BBM. So we call each other,
awesome
ourselves
stuff.
BBM.
And the businesses? You also do work with companies?
Yes, I do. So a lot of your corporate wellness companies. So a lot of people might know me from like your ICAS, your Keways, your Gaelos. So all your corporate companies have wellness.
Okay, and that's under Boy Choco?
No, that would be under those companies. Under Boitoko, that's training.
Okay.
And development and all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. And social media?
Yes, Jay Flabber.
Why are you laughing?
On Instagram.
We're plugging you.
No, you guys
we need
are.
more people
do it. So they can find me on Instagram on Jay Flabber.
Okay.
All right. Facebook, it's Boitumelo Boikhutso, spelled out.
Yes.
What else is there? Twitter, I'm not so big on.
I hate Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not a Twitter fan. Hey.
And this is just for professional use, guys.
Yes. So again, on Facebook, you can just direct message me. That would be great. On Instagram, I might just kind of filter through a few things, and then can I give them my private practice number?
All of it.
So people can reach me on 074 250 9557.
That's your private.
Yeah, that's work.
Okay.
That's private practice. So if people want me to come through, do a talk, training, or they want to see me at my practice, they can give me a call on that number.
Awesome stuff. That is Boitumelo Boikhutso, aka Boits.
Yes.
And that was the Board Free Podcast, episode 3. Thank you for listening. Awesome stuff. Now, that was the recording with Boitumelo Boikhutso that I did earlier on this week. Episode 3 of the Born Free podcast. Remember, rate, subscribe, and review on iTunes. Check us out on SoundCloud. Follow us on our social media platforms as well, at The Born Free Pod on Twitter, The Born Free Podcast on Instagram, pardon me. And Facebook, we are The Born Free Podcast. Please leave a comment, like, share. Please help us grow. We're trying to do big things with this podcast. So yeah, your help is needed, is required, is appreciated and valued. So do that. We are soon to be on Patreon, so you can check out our Patreon page. I'm hoping to have it up in about, let me say, mid-August or early August, depending on how things go. But yeah, our Patreon page, basically you can be a member of Patreon. You can donate whatever you feel we are worth. And yeah, just help us secure some funds just to, to get some water, book studio, just basically just help the podcast survive. We're on our 4th episode coming up next week as well. I'm just trying to keep the consistency and the flow going. So yeah, man, if you have any suggestions, if you have any recommendations for guests or how a format of the show, whatever, if you just want to send us an email just to say what's up, please hit us up on Gmail, thebornfreepodcast@gmail.com. That was episode 3. I am One Shaman. This is the Born Free Podcast. Enjoy the day, evening, wherever you are. Peace and love.